Welcome to the Asylum, the #1 place for your toy and collectible fix. Receive the help you need only at the Asylum. We hope you enjoy your visit. Yes.
Welcome, one and all, to episode 4 of the Asylum Show. I'm Mike, the facilities manager of the Asylum, and your host. Now this episode of the show is going to be very different by comparison to how different I said the last one was. And the reason for that being is it's a long showcase on the overhaul of the Asylum itself. So what I've done recently is I've reshuffled all of my workspace and completely changed all our displays. So we'll be getting into that. I'm actually post work, so everything's been done now. And I don't really want to give anything away. Hence, we're on a black background at current. Now I'll go into a lot more explanation during the video itself. I'm hoping what this will do is give you a little look behind the scenes. You'll see display ideas. Going to go briefly into cleaning methods for toys, in particular Lego and other things. I go into detail a little more about what types of furniture we use and the types of lighting that we use. And hopefully you'll enjoy this process. So without further ado, here's me.
And here we are. So as you can see, we started out a mess. Apologies for the camera quality, it does come into focus in a couple of seconds. And I'm just starting out by moving anything that could get broken. So all electrical equipment, move the desk so I can actually get access to everything, and everything you'd expect. Now, what prompted this was actually predominantly my being able to shoot YouTube videos. So having to set up everything before I can actually record any video is getting a bit stressful, to say the least, just because of how long and how much extra time it adds to the production process on a single episode. Hence the last one, I didn't have time to set anything up, and it was all set in photographs. But that's also very time consuming to actually match everything up with my script and bits and pieces, especially depending on what I want to talk about. So that's what prompted this. And we've lived where we are now for a good 2.5 years or so, and we've had the same layout in this living room, and it was time to just have a change, and everything needed a good clean. So it kind of all culminated together with YouTube being the catalyst, and being able to bring our content to you much quicker and in a much more timely process. More efficient is the word that I'm looking for. As you can see, I'm just clearing everything out. Now I know I made a huge mistake here. For any of you who are thinking it, I should have emptied the cabinets and the Kallax units into tubs, which I actually do later on. So, bit of a silly move on my part. I ended up having to move everything 2 or 3 times rather than just having to store it and then move it twice. Once out of place, once back into place. I am aware how ridiculous I am for not having done that. Now, a note to anyone out there moving these Detolf units, these are just standard IKEA Detolfs. When you are trying to lift them, now I'm not a small dude, as you can probably tell, and I can happily lift these. For anyone else, if you're not comfortable lifting them, I would certainly suggest 2 things. 1, take the doors off first so that they're not weighted. I found that they wanted to drift over to whatever side the door was on or hinged on, and also get someone to help. I kind of wish I did, but again, I didn't have much time, and luckily nothing was broken. So quickly, whilst we're just watching me move things around, and cleaning things. I'll have a quick walk through with what I actually have in the shot here, so you can see, as I say, everything pretty much is from IKEA. It's nice, cheap furniture with a really long guarantee. The cabinets are Detolfs, they're £40 a piece. The lights that I use are the Dioda, I think they're called. They're £20 a set, but you can get much cheaper alternatives elsewhere. I've just always bought the IKEA ones just because when you're in IKEA, why not? And also because that's what I started out with, I want all my light tones to match, so I don't want to buy another set and then find out that they're much lighter or much warmer light, so I wanted to keep everything uniform. Now we're still on the first day, I believe. Next up, I've taken the lights that were in the 4x1 Kallax that are now under the Detolf, and I'm now putting those on the second shelves down on the 4x4 Kallax. And then we're going to go into wiring. Now what I did with the wiring on these originally was use some really horrible little sticky kind of like cable holders, and they just didn't do the job very well. So I went with a completely more makeshift approach in reattaching the lights, and I used electrical tape, just standard black electrical tape. I actually found a couple of things. One, I got a much better hold, and two, because it's more malleable, I was able to really hide the cabling much better than I was before. And I got 4 rolls of that from the pound shop, and it was really that simple. And that's that. It's just the process it takes. I mean, you can see the cable lengths on the diode lights is ridiculous, so you've really got to get all those into place before you know what you're doing with them. Cable tie them up, get them all nicely and sorted, and then I use D-Link tubs for my extension cords and cabling, just to keep them hidden. They can sit at the back of a shelf, they look a lot nicer, and then you can just put things in front of those. So we skipped to the next day. Now I have to say, one of the things that I did install whilst I was doing that, and I will show you a bit better in another shot at the end of the video, I actually attached a couple of remote control sockets to the lights, so I now have independent control over the Detolf cabinets and the Kallax unit via remote control. I got the controller and 2 sockets for £12 from Asda. Probably the best investment I've ever made. I haven't now got to try and get into the corner to click on sockets or anything like that. It all stays on as it is, and then I can switch off the socket by a remote anywhere in the house. So that's really good. Now, as you can see, just trying to clear out some space so I can get to the cabinets. And you can see that I've started utilising tubs just underneath the Detolf cabinets, so that I haven't got to keep moving everything everywhere. Okay, so now we're setting up for cleaning and setup. So the first things that I dealt with were pieces that either didn't really need to be cleaned, or were just a simple, oh no, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. I foam lined the Detolf units. I got some sticky back foam from Asda for £2.50. I think it's 15 meters. I managed to do these 3 cabinets to try and dust proof them a little more, so that maintenance can be, because now I've done all this cleaning and sorted everything out, the last thing I want to do is have to do this again, and you'll see what I mean in a moment. I just wanted to be able to keep everything a bit easier maintenance, so I think once every 3 months or so I'll pull everything out of the cabinets and I'll give it a good dust down, but it should only really need a dust down. Now this theory, a lot of people use foam, sticky back foam to dust proof their cabinets. It's not 100% dust proof. You'll never really get 100% dust proof from that method, but it definitely will help in the long run. Now, as you can see, as I was saying earlier, what I am doing now is the stuff that just needs a general dust over or doesn't really need much of a clean, that will now go back into the cabinets where it's meant to be going. Anything else that needs a bit of a deeper clean, you'll see my process for that in a moment, and I'll also walk you through that. A lot of the stuff here, especially a few of the aliens pieces, which is actually my other halves cabinet, they're all quite new, so they didn't really need a lot of touching with regards to cleaning or restoration or anything. I've got a shed load of these acrylic plinths. I got these on eBay, they're quite cheap. I was actually quite annoyed with myself. The Power Ranger shelf ended up moving a little later on. In fact, a lot of it did. I got things onto shelves how I wanted them presented, but just didn't feel that either they matched what they were set with, or height-wise they didn't quite work on whatever shelves they were on, so I decided to move things around as I went. And a lot has actually changed since then. So continuing on, as you can see, I've got my other halves Harley Quinn collection in place, smaller bits on the top. She's got her alien shelf. I've got the Power Rangers on the bottom shelf, which will move soon. I've got some DC Directs and DC Collectibles pieces, my Arkham Asylum pieces, Marvel. I nearly said Select. I don't own any Select. I'm not a massive fan of the scale of Select figures, so I stick with Marvel Legends. So we're now on to day 3, I believe. As you can see, I'm starting to submerge any of my what I class as submergible toys. The way that I identify those are basically they have to be pure plastic, no metal hinges or rivets or anything in them, and no action features. So they're quite happy just to sit in some warm soapy water for a bit, let all any dust and grime that may be on them loosen up, ready for me to give a little clean down later. Whilst I'm letting those soak, I get on with a couple of other pieces. I'm using command strip little hooks, but on the to hang the carded figures in the back of the cabinet there. But the adhesive pads that they come with don't actually work on glass, so what I ended up having to use was using double-sided sticky pads from made by Sellotape, and they work to treat. Nice transparent little hooks, you can't even notice that they're there once the figures are up. Now I'm getting on back into my loose figures, my submergibles, etc., giving them a good wipe down, good dry off, make sure I get any excess soap and bits and pieces off of there, a little damp cloth. Leave those to dry properly in a moment and just take out what I need as I go. It's a timely process. As I say, my collection hadn't been cleaned in quite some time, so I'm hoping to never have to really go through this again for a good long time, but I will ensure that I do, as I say, at least a maintenance every 3 months or so, every quarter. Oh, here he comes, Darth Vader. Now I tried using the same hook approach for my Black Series figures inside the cabinets, but unfortunately they're just a little heavy for the Sellotape strips, so I end up having to put those on little acrylic plinths in just a moment. Now I've actually got 2 types of acrylic plinths that I'm using here. I've got the 3-tier that I bought from eBay quite some time ago, and also I'm not sure if it's across the border, if it's just my local branch, but Brantano are closing down currently, and they've got some nice little like 3-inch high just single plinths, and I was able to pick a load of those up for 50p a piece, so I was quite impressed with that. They're silly money if you do buy those. So as you say, just carrying on with the dusting process. I'm actually using baby wipes for any boxed items that have got some dirt build up and dust, etc. on them. What I do is I'll just take one, I'll strain it out of any excess moisture, and then I'll go to town on the box as gently as possible without misshaping it. And again, anything that just needs a general wipe over, I'll use either a dusting cloth or again the same baby wipe technique. It's not the most interesting thing to watch, I must admit, but it's just a matter of now putting things into place where they're going to go, and this is the hardest part. Once you've got the bulk of things in where you kind of know where they're going to go, the further down the rabbit hole you get to the end, it becomes a little more difficult figuring out and configuring the displays themselves. So this is actually probably the most timely process when I got onto the Kallax units and how I was going to display things. And you'll see in a moment that I start to move things around. I notice there's a big gap between my Batman Animated Series collection and my Nintendo collection, which I then decide to plug up with my Power Rangers Legacy and action figures that you can see in the bottom of the cabinet. There we go. But I already had a plan for this, so I'd already got my Boba Fett shelf figured out. So all I did was move the Watchmen over to the right because I thought it made more sense with the DC things. And then I popped my Boba Fett shelf in the bottom of that cabinet where the Watchmen were, as it made the most sense with the rest of my Star Wars pieces. There's still a big unsightly gap there, but I'm quite happy for that at the moment. I'll probably end up buying some more Boba Fett things to put in there anyway. Now stocking up the retro shelf, which has added loads more since I first put things on there. And you'll see the same again. I started doing a Transformers shelf, realised it wasn't the right place for it, and I'll move that around again. Now I'm just doing some general tidying up. I think this is the end of this day, and I come back to it on day 4. So a little reconfiguring. There's a few pieces that I had to get out of the cupboards. Again, they're all stuffed. You haven't seen me go into those yet. But there's a few pieces that I wanted out. I've got a few box pops that want to stay in the boxes, and a few other bits and pieces. A load of boxed action figures. And this is the start of me trying to clean my Ninja Turtles Lego set, which really wasn't working. This thing is, or was I should say, dirty as hell and required a lot more of a deep clean. Now, I'd normally with Lego go over the surfaces with Q-tips and again a bit of soapy water. It just wasn't working with these. Q-tips can be a little thick to get between the little pegs, etc. on Lego, so I end up dismantling the whole set, which you can see me starting to do now. And then what I did was take some plastic baggies that I'd normally pop my action figures for sale and stuff in, with a bit of soapy water, and with the same way of the submergible toys, let them to soak for a bit. And we'll come back to that in just a bit. So moving things from other shelves, trying to get everything into place. And yeah, it's just general rearrangement. As I say, you'll see a lot of stuff move from where it is into other places. And it's just about cleaning as I go and ensuring that toys are maintained. Because at the end of the day, if you're going to spend your time on this hobby and to really enjoy it, you need to look after your things. Otherwise, the last thing you want is plastic degradation, when you get that tacky feeling, etc., which luckily none of my toys suffer from. Maybe a couple of my Ninja Turtle pieces, which I do need to get around to cleaning, but as you can see on top of the big cupboards to the right, they haven't been touched as yet. They will be pulled down now that I've done everything else and I've got a bit more space to play with and work in. They will be pulled down and cleaned in just the same way. So this is me now unboxing loads of toys. I've had a stack of stuff that I've wanted to get out for quite some time, but just never had the space or time to do it. So I saw this as the perfect opportunity to fill out shelf gaps and bits and pieces. So I've got a few Transformers, I had some Star Wars pieces that I wanted to come out, I had some World of Nintendo, still got a couple of Ninja Turtle pieces, but again I won't unbox those until I've actually cleaned up the Ninja Turtle collection. I think that's it. I think the only obscure bit that I had was a little Kid Arachnid that I picked up in Asda the other day for £5. Oh, and obviously my DC Collectibles animated series finally came out of their boxes. Made a nice little display on those. I've been waiting to do this for quite some time, but again, it was all about the spacing and time. So I get 3 animated series figures in, and then realise, no, in the wrong place. So are the Transformers, and so is my movie and TV shelf. So I move all of those around. Continuing to unbox figures, set them up nicely. I've got to say that I'm not a massive, like, aesthetically, the animated series DC Collectibles toys are amazing, and they're great representations of the characters, like some of the most accurate I've ever seen of any toy line. But their articulation has been figured out so odd to it was definitely, I think, when they were designing these toys, the mixture of what do we want, aesthetic or articulation, and they went with aesthetic, which I'm actually happy with. I might try and use some for photography at some point, but I think they'll be a little awkward, and also the stands that they come with aren't the best, and with no peg holes I can't even use any of my DC Collectibles or DC Direct stands on them, but I've made do with what I've got. They look great sitting on the shelf. Alright, I think we're doing more general tidying, bagging pieces up, more cleaning. And yeah, this is what I was saying, my movie and TV shelf moved up just by one. Got a little miscellaneous Batman shelf next to my computer nook. And then the other half comes and helps me in just a moment. So this is the Turtles Lair Lego set. So what she's now doing is sieving out the pieces and scrubbing down the ones with just a soft nail brush to get any excess dirt or crud from within the Lego pieces. I, on the other hand, you can't see me, I'm just out of frame on the left there. I'm sorting out, I've got 2 baby bookshelves from Argus that I use for my pops and 3-inch vinyl figures, etc. So I'm setting those up. But I thought you might be more interested in seeing how I would deep clean Lego, or how we would deep clean Lego. And then I jumped ahead. Now this was simply because if I hadn't jumped ahead, I kind of would have given away the end result of the entire transformation of the space. So I'm now rebuilding my turtle there. I couldn't be asked to go up into the loft and find my original instructions, so I simply downloaded the PDF online. Made a lot more sense. And bang this thing back together, I think in 20-30 minutes. It was the final piece, just so I could get my little Ninja Turtle Lego and Mega Block shelf sorted out and round out the entire room. Now, I didn't really, I was going to hold off rebuilding this, but that shelf not being finished would have kind of really annoyed me. The other things that I did on this day were alphabetize my Blu-ray and graphic novel collection, because they're now out on display when they never were before. I wanted nice easy access, and things always look better when they're alphabetized, so why not? Love this Lego set. This is one of the first sets that I've had in a long time where I feel like the cost wasn't massively an issue when it came to the actual manufacturing process. They were like, we want it to actually fit its purpose, so what can we do to make it do that? And they did everything they needed to. It's very functional, it's a very fun build. And here we are, we've jumped ahead now. As you can see, we've got lots of open floor space now. The cabinets are all nicely set up. These are the pop and minis that I was telling you about just now. Nice couple of really basic shelves. have a little walk around and kind of see what's on there. I'll be doing a review on that baby Groot that you can see in the back of the Marvel Lego shelf there. And yeah, it's such an improvement on where it was, I think 5 days ago, 6 days ago. That's how long this process took in total. Of obviously I have things to do in the middle of that. I also filmed myself doing some post, so I'm going to do a couple of post tutorials at some point. And what I'll do when I pull down the Ninja Turtles, I'll actually do a proper walkthrough of cleaning processes, etc. I didn't want to do it in this one just because of the length of the episode already. I mean, we're sitting at 26 minutes at this point. If I had stopped to do any other tutorials or show off anything in detail, then we'd be here for a good hour. So I just wanted to show you the general process, what I went through, give you a little idea of the Asylum, and give you a bit more of a perspective on the personal collection as well. As I said, I can't remember which episode, but I wasn't able to give a tour just because of the state of things, and you can clearly see that it was a mess. This is another Death Elf that I'm going to be taking all the Lego out and giving all of that a deep clean. I'm thinking of doing one set per week, well, one big set per week plus a few small sets at the same time. And coming up in just a moment, I've got a couple of still images on that back wall, just so you can see it in a little more depth. So this has been the transformation. I hope you've enjoyed it. If there's anything that you'd like me to touch on, or anything you'd like me to explain a bit more, such as the lighting or the display units or any of the toys or anything that you've seen in this video, please feel free to ask. You can either direct message me or simply put something in the comments below, and I'll be sure to get back to you. As always, if you like the video, please be sure to give us a thumbs up. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel. And also, when you do subscribe, please hit the notification bell. Then that way you'll know exactly when the next episode of The Asylum Show is up and ready for you. And that's been it. I'm Mike of The Asylum, and I'll catch you in the next one.